A few days ago, we were out with our son doing one of those very normal baby errands that somehow takes 3 times longer than it should. I don't even remember what it was anymore. It might have been the pharmacy or the supermarket or just one of those appointment days where you leave the house thinking this is going to be quick, and then by the time you actually get out the door, you have your diaper bag, the carrier, the stroller, a pacifier, a bottle, a backup outfit, and somehow still the feeling that you forgot that one thing you were actually supposed to bring. And at some point, a woman smiled at her son and said something like, "Oh, he looks happy. Oh, er sieht so glücklich aus." Or maybe, "How old is he? Wie alt ist er?" I answered. Martin was standing there next to me. One of us was probably bouncing him a little bit because it's just our default movement now. And then the conversation just moved on. She did not look at both of us and try to figure out the family structure. She didn't ask where his mom was. We've gotten before, "Are you the mother?" But she didn't ask where the mom is. But either way, she also didn't do that little pause that I also know very well, where someone realizes that there are two men standing there with their baby, and suddenly the whole interaction shifts by half a degree. And the reason I noticed that moment was not because anything dramatic happened. I noticed it because it stayed normal. That has been one of the strangest emotional surprises of becoming a dad in Germany. Some of the moments that affect me the most are not the big, beautiful ones that you would put in a movie. They are not speeches or flags or someone telling us how brave we are or how wonderful it is that families like ours exist. Sometimes it is just literally a person treating us like parents and then continuing on with their day. And I know that almost sounds too small to build a whole video around, but I think that smallness is actually the point. Because when you grow up gay in America, or at least when I grew up gay in America, you learn to scan situations before you even realize you were doing it. You walk into a room, and some part of you is already asking, is this place safe? Can I mention my husband or my boyfriend here? Is this person going to be normal about it? Can I say our son without the whole energy changing? It is not always a fear in a dramatic way. I mean, most of the time it is quieter than that. It is more like a background program that keeps running while you are trying to live your life. I think becoming a parent has made me notice that background program much more clearly. Because now I am not only scanning for myself, I am watching how the world reacts to our son, to Martin, to me, to the three of us together. Before I had a child, I could tell myself, okay, I can handle the awkward questions, I can handle strange assumptions, I can handle people not knowing what to do with me. But once there is a baby involved, even a tiny reaction feels different. Suddenly I'm thinking, what kind of world is he growing up in? And how early will he start noticing when people treat his family as something that needs an explanation? A lot of you found this channel through my video about how Germany gave me permission to stop hiding who I was. What surprised me about that video was not just that people watched it, but that the comment section turned into a much bigger conversation about America, Germany, freedom, dignity, privacy, and what acceptance actually feels like. People were not just saying, "Oh, Germany is better," or "America is worse." A lot of you were trying to name something more subtle. And one idea that came up again and again was that in America, freedom often feels like I can do whatever I want. While in Germany, freedom can sometimes feel more like I have the right to be left alone. And I've been sitting on that for a while because as a gay American who now lives in Germany and is raising a baby here with my husband, that difference is not abstract to me. I feel it in daily life. I feel it when I say my husband and the conversation just keeps going. I feel it when Martin is wearing our son in the carrier and nobody turns it into a big cultural moment. I feel it at appointments where the main question is not where is the mother, but it's do you have private or public health insurance? Do you have an insurance card? And I want to be careful here because whenever you compare two countries, it is very easy to become too neat. Germany is not some perfect queer paradise. Germany, of course, can be conservative. I mean, really, like anywhere these days, especially where we live. Bavaria has a lot of tradition, a lot of Catholic influence, a lot of very established ideas about family and society. Queer people still experience prejudice here, of course, and rainbow families still deal with legal and social complications. We've had strange comments too, so I'm not pretending that everything is magically easy. America is not also just one thing, it's a huge, huge country, very populous, and there are incredible queer communities in the US. There are places where pride feels genuinely powerful and protective. There are activists and chosen families and people who have fought very hard so that people like me could live more openly. And I do not want to dismiss that because I needed some of that visibility when I was younger. When you grow up not seeing yourself anywhere, a rainbow flag in a window can matter. A company showing a queer couple in an ad can matter. I didn't have that growing up. A public sign that says, "You're welcome here," can matter. For anyone, it doesn't matter if they're gay or not. And at the same time, there's this kind of exhaustion that comes with always needing signs. If you are constantly looking for proof that a place is safe, then part of you is constantly aware that it might not be. And I think that is what I'm slowly unlearning in Germany. I'm not saying I never scan anymore because I definitely do, but there are moments here where I realize that afterwards I did not have to prepare myself as much as expected. That is especially interesting to me because we are not living in Berlin, we are living right now in Southeast Bavaria. I think a lot of Americans, if they imagine queer life in Germany, probably picture Berlin first because Berlin has this international reputation as alternative and open and wild and very queer. But our everyday life is not that. Our everyday life is baby appointments, errands, lots of walks, paperwork, German bureaucracy, family life, and all of the normal stuff that happens when you're raising a 4.5-month-old baby. So when people here treat us as normal, it means something to me precisely because it is not happening inside of some perfect progressive bubble, so to speak. One of the things I'm starting to understand is that there is a difference between someone approving of your family and someone behaving as if their approval was never needed. That second one feels very different. In America, I often felt like queerness was always being pulled into public meaning. You are celebrated, debated, defended, criticized, marketed to, voted on, prayed for, or turned into someone's example of what is right and wrong with society. In New York, I feel like I literally lived all of that. Sometimes visibility is necessary, and sometimes it is life-saving. But it can also get tiring when your resistance keeps becoming a statement. Sometimes you just want to buy bread. Sometimes you just want to go to the pediatrician. Sometimes you want to stand in line with your husband and your baby and have the most interesting thing about that moment be whether your child is about to spit up on your shirt. There is something deeply calming about that. And maybe that is what I mean when I say Germany sometimes doesn't care. I do not mean nobody cares about rights or discrimination or visibility. I mean, there are many everyday situations where people do not need to understand every detail of your life before they leave you in peace. A few people also brought up privacy in the comments, and I think that belongs in this conversation more than I realized at first. Germany has a much stronger privacy culture than what I grew up with in the US. People are much more cautious here about filming strangers or turning random people in public into content. And that matters to me as a gay American and now as a parent. We live in a time where someone can see a family they do not understand, pull out a phone, record it, post it online, and suddenly a private moment becomes a public argument. When you spend a lot of your life feeling watched, being left alone does not feel cold. It can feel protective. It gives you room to exist without wondering if your normal Tuesday afternoon is about to become someone else's debate. That also makes me think about Pa Parade, this channel, in a very different way, because obviously we share parts of our family story online. We talk about being two dads, we talk about our surrogacy journey, we talk about modern fatherhood, because visibility does matter. I believe that. Otherwise, I would not be sitting here right now making this video. But choosing to share your own story is very different from having someone else turn you into a story. I want to talk about our family in a way that's thoughtful, respectful, especially when it comes to our son, our surrogate, our Tragemutter, or the egg donor, our Eiselspenderin, and to all the real people that connected to our story. I do not want a stranger deciding that our family should become an argument just because they saw us in public and did not know where to put us in their worldview. That is why the German version of normal has become so meaningful to me. It is not always warm in the American sense. People here are not always going to smile at you, compliment you, or reassure you that they support your family. Sometimes German normal can feel a little dry on the outside, especially if you're used to American emotional friendliness. But over time, I've started to appreciate that a lack of performance can also feel respectful. You are not always being asked to explain yourself. You are not always being pulled into someone else's reaction. And that's also changed how I think about pride. I still care deeply about pride. I still care about queer rights, representation, and visibility, especially for young people who need to see that a future is possible. I'm politically active and I do my part to help represent that. I know there are places where being quiet does not mean peace, it means fear. So I'm not saying that everyone should stop talking about queer identity or rainbow families or discrimination. Obviously, I'm talking about it right now, but I'm starting to understand that there is a stage beyond visibility, or maybe alongside visibility, where you are not hiding and you are not performing either. You are just living. You are out, but your whole day is not about being out. You are seen, but you are also allowed to continue with whatever boring errand you were doing before that someone noticed you. And honestly, boring sounds pretty beautiful to me right now. Boring means that the appointment went fine. It means that the form worked. Boring means that someone heard two dads and just kept talking. Boring means our son's family structure was not the most interesting thing in the room. And after years of quietly waiting for reactions, that kind of boring feels like peace. The deeper part for me is our son. I don't want him growing up thinking his family is valuable because it is inspiring or educational or good representation. Of course, I hope that our story helps people, and I hope our visibility makes other families feel less alone. But for him, I want something simpler. I want him to feel that his family is just his family. He will, of course, have questions one day, and we will answer them honestly and age appropriate. We talk about surrogacy in the US, about our surrogate, our Tragemutter, about our egg donor, the Eiselspenderin, about why his story looks different from some other children's stories. And we're not trying to make his story smaller or less complex than it is. But I hope he does not grow up feeling like he has to explain his family. Maybe that is what Germany has given me, or at least what Germany has started to teach me. When I was younger, I thought freedom meant finally being seen because for a long time I felt like I had to hide. And being seen did matter. Coming out mattered so much. Building a life with Martin mattered. Becoming a father, well, that was everything. But now I'm realizing that another kind of freedom comes when people see you and then let you continue with your day. You are standing there with your baby, one of you is holding him, the other is trying to remember where the pacifier went. Someone smiles, says something kind, and then turns right back around. The world keeps moving, and for once, your family does not enter the room as a question. That might not sound like a big moment, but for me, it is. Every time something like that happens, some small part of me realizes that maybe I do not have to brace myself as much as I used to. Maybe my son can grow up with less of that tension in his body than I had in mine. And maybe being treated as completely normal is not the opposite of acceptance. Maybe in some situations, it is one of the deepest forms of it. I would really love to know how this feels to you, especially if you have lived between cultures or if you have ever had to scan a room before deciding how much of yourself you could show. Do you feel more accepted when people actively celebrate who you are? Or do you feel more free when nobody makes a big deal out of it? I think both can matter, but right now at this stage in my life, with a 4.5-month-old baby and a diaper bag that somehow always has everything except the one thing I actually need, I'm beginning to understand the beauty of being treated as completely normal. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you next time.